What's up, everybody? It's Polish Pete. I'm in our studio in Golden Valley, Minnesota, and this is another technique highlight. This one they brought to me because this is one of my confidence techniques. This is football jig fishing. This is one of the first ways I learned how to fish structure, offshore structure. The football jig does two things for you. One, it gets bit, and two, it tells you what the bottom's like. So if you struggle with your electronics or you're in a new body of water and you want to learn what the bottom composition of your body of water is like, there's two things that are really going to help you out. This technique highlight I'm talking about, and also Omnia Pro. Omnia Pro, if you go to your navionics section and look for flats or transitions on those contour lines in your mapping, that takes a little bit of time, but one of the cheaty little secrets there for a pro, if you go into our bottom hardness layer, not all lakes have it because this is socially, these are social maps, so they come in from the consumers out in the field, so not all the lakes have it, but some lakes do, and that'll actually show you hard bottom areas of the lake. That is where you want to key in with a football jig. And then what I like to do with the navionics portion of the Pro app is go look for points. That's low-hanging fruit stuff. If you look for points and go off the edge of that, you typically can find some hard bottom and some rocks. If you look for flats next to drop-offs and like fish the area right in between, there's a lot of times a big transition of a whole bunch of lines real close to each other and then a flat portion because something happened there, right? There's some rock and it broke off into a sand transition, or it can be different types of bottom composition, but a lot of times what you're looking for is just a change in that bottom composition and preferably hard stuff. Gravel, rock, chunky rock, boulders, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff works with a football jig. So before there was side imaging, my way of finding rocks on my home lake, Lake Minnetonka, was with a football jig. And the easiest way to start off with these is getting yourself like a 3/4 ounce football jig. This one here is from Picasso. Doesn't matter the brand of your choice, but you go with one of these and start off with a pretty stout rod. Something like this Tatula XT and a 7.6 heavy. This one I think even might be an extra heavy, but this thing's big time bang for your buck. And if you put braided line and a leader on this, you are going to feel absolutely everything down there in the bottom. And I do recommend you start off with that braid to a leader. You don't need it. A lot of expert anglers and football jig anglers will go to straight fluoro eventually, but I'm just saying if you're new to this technique, try that braid to a leader. Learn that knot. Take your time to learn the Albright knot or the Alberto knot. FG knot preferably if you could learn that one. Take the time, learn that, put some 20-pound fluorocarbon on the end of some 30-pound braided line and go out there and throw it and let it sink to the bottom. It's 3/4, so you're gonna feel it hit the bottom. You're gonna feel it dragging. And if you're not feeling anything, you're on soft bottom. If you're feeling it hard, almost like you're getting bit, you're hitting hard objects. You're hitting rock, you're hitting pebbles, you're hitting that transition in the bottom hardness area. I also say that aids you with that braid to a leader initially, because if you're around vegetation on a vegetation edge, you'll be able to clean your jig off very easily. And a lot of times you get your bites as that jig comes through that vegetation and first contacts that hard bottom. That's because those fish are either outside of that edge or in that edge of weeds, and they're looking at that hard edge where they see some crayfish or some bugs or something, and they come out and they ambush it. So that braid to a leader is just aiding you in learning where your jig is and what type of bottom it's on. Now, trailers for a 3/4 ounce football jig like that to start off with, 2 tines, I would say. I have a lot of faith in smelly stuff. So if you look like this Berkeley Maxent, if you go to like a larger size chigger craw, like a 4-inch, that'd be a perfect one to go on the back of this 3/4 one. Maybe cut a little chunk of it off, but it's gonna smell really, really heavy. It's gonna be something that they pick up and move with while you're learning how to fish it and keep it. They're gonna bite it and hold onto it a little bit longer. But honestly, another good one is something like a rage craw, something with more of an aggressive paddle to it. So if it's got flat flanges on the ends, it kicks a lot harder. This causes a bigger disturbance and it'll draw fish in from a wider area. The chigger craw is gonna be awesome to make fish that are tough to get to commit to bite, maybe even cooler water temperatures, get them to bite. But this rage craw, to me, this shines when you're covering water and you're learning how to fish the jig. You can get a lot of fish on the fall, when you're moving it, when you're breaking it through the vegetation, just banging it into rocks. Those legs are gonna kick like crazy. All right, next up I should say, before I move on to that, for all the different football jigs I'm gonna talk about, if you're gonna throw it on casting equipment, there's no need to overthink it. Get yourself a really, really fast one. You're not fishing the jig with the reel, you're fishing it with the rod. So all you're using this reel for is to cast it where you want it and to pick up the line after you set the hook on a fish or get that football jig back to the boat. So 8 1-to-1 or faster, to me, there's no reason to go slower with a football jig. I know a lot of people like to do that because they crawl it really, really, really slow. To me, that's what I use the rod for. I'm going to use that rod to move that jig, and that 8 1-to-1's there no matter where that rod is. If I get a bite, I can clean up my slack line, get a hook set, and fight that fish back to the boat really, really fast. With a football jig, I don't like them jumping a whole bunch. So if speed's your friend, get that fish in the boat as soon as possible. All right. Next up is something more popular nowadays, a trend in the football jig world, is going to the smaller tungsten football jigs. This one here happens to be a Beast Coast little baby dozer. As you can see, it's a much smaller football jig than the lead version in the 3/4 that I was talking about. And you can get these up to 3/4 as well, but even in the smaller sizes, these are what shine. They do really match the forage size a little bit better. The craws that they're typically foraging on are more this size than this big size of the big 4-inch bait on it. So now you want to downsize it maybe to like a 3-inch sugar craw like this one here, and you're going to have a smaller presentation and a more finesse presentation. Now, for the rod, you want to downsize it. That's the one thing I can recommend with these that I've found to be very true. Fishing my traditional football jig tackle with it, the big heavy stuff, is a little overpowering. These hooks are small. You're going to run a little bit lighter line. You'll get more bites with a little bit lighter line, and overpowering it with a big heavy rod won't be the trick. You've got a bunch of these rods already, so I'll save you some money, but if you don't, this is a really good one. Here's a 7-1 medium heavy, the Grunt in the Victory lineup from St. Croix, but that style of rod, 7 foot to 7.3 medium heavy, to me is perfect. Very versatile rod. They're kind of your do-all rods, but now you can go with lighter fluorocarbon, like a 12-pound fluorocarbon. You can go straight on it if you want, but once again, I do recommend that braided line, like this 30-pound braided line here. Fill your spool up with that, run a leader on it, learn how to fish that jig. These little tungsten ones you can feel a lot with. The best part about these is you can downsize them. You still get that feel and that bottom contact you would out of a big lead 3/4. I still think these get the bigger bites sometimes. I've gotten big ones on these, but when you're head hunting, this is a good one. But if you go down in size like that, you want to downsize these to downsize your trailer, downsize your line a little bit, and downsize your rod a little bit. Makes sense, right? Lastly, the big hot trend in football jigs is open water football jigs. That's open hooks too. There's no brush guard as you can see on this football jig. This one here is actually another Beast Coast offering. This is the open water sniper. But we have a bunch of different football jigs that are either unskirted. I don't know how many other skirted, a few other skirted non-weed guarded football jigs we have, but this is very popular. I have found myself having more success fishing these with a spinning rod. It's not ideal all the time, but to me, it does get the fish in the boat a lot more. I can feel a lot with it. I'm running lighter line. I think I'm getting more bites. And here's a little hint too. I have found myself fishing pretty unique trailers with the little open water ones. Things like a Z-Man hula stick or a TRD, a little bit of Senko, things of that nature. It's more of a stick bait presentation. These actually float up like this, and they just have the little tentacles on them and the hula stick here. And these do get bit really well. It's almost like power Ned rig fishing. I know, I said it, but it is kind of what it is, right? It's a jig head on the bottom and it's standing up with a worm presentation, but I also do like the smaller craws and things of that nature as well. These are bite getters. They're absolutely perfect when you're trying to find active schools of fish, you're covering water on a big rock flat, expansive rock flat, and if there's a lot of boats fishing an area, this can be key. So places like we have around here, like Lake Mille Lacs, that are getting a ton of pressure certain times of year, this is a perfect option for you, these little tiny football jigs like this open water sniper. Now for the tackle you would need for that, to fish it, right here we have a 7.4 medium. This is an Enforcer from the Megabass Orochi lineup. This is a perfect rod for that. It's long enough I can reach out and make a long cast of this thing and drag it across a rock flat, but it's not too stiff that I'm overpowering that hook or overpowering those fish with a big stiff rod. I can get away with what I would consider kind of perfect line for it. It'd be like a 12-pound test fluorocarbon again with a filler spool material like 15-pound braid here, like this X braid. This stuff launches. If you're not familiar with it, it's brand new, it's Japanese line. This stuff is fire. It will cast super far. Put yourself a leader on the end of that, and you can feel all over that rock flat and pick off those fish that are getting pressured from a lot of other boats. Lastly, the spinning reel is important in this scenario. This is where this can be a controversial take, but a lot of people, in my opinion, don't take advantage of the fact that a larger spinning reel will pick up your line faster and it will cast further as well. And it also has larger drag surface. I know you guys have heard me talk about this stuff before with a 4,000 size spinning reel, but in this particular scenario, it's awesome to have. Because if you have slack line out there or a bow in your line on a long cast of something like this jig, you can clean it up in one turn of the handle with this, because you're picking up double the line that you are with a smaller spinning reel. So yes, it's a big spinning reel, but it goes on a really long rod really well. I promise you it balances out great, and it will pick up line faster. It'll get more fish in the boat for you. So that's a lot of stuff, but you got 3 different styles of football jigs right now that are the popular ones. I definitely recommend start off with the big lead ones, like I said, a big rod, big line, and go find what the bottom of your lake's like. And if you want to speed up that process, go check out Omnia Pro.